I don't really have a set structure of where I want to go with this. It's just an idea that I've been kind of floating around my brain the last few days. There's a book called Range by Malcolm Gladwell, or Malcolm Gadwell. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of the most influential books that I think I've ever read, and has had a huge influence in some of the decisions I've made the last few years. But essentially, the premise of the book is that some of the world's best at fill in the blank really had a very unusual background and really didn't one trick the skill that they're well known for at the age of 4. A lot of the skills that they developed along the way made them who they were, and when they finally decided to specialize and apply themselves, they were phenomenal at what they did, and a lot of it was because of the things that they did up to that point. Now, I don't know where my life is going to go. I'm still under the age of 30, so I've got a lot of living to do. However, I can look at what I'm doing right now as a product of specialization that I did earlier. Little tiny specializations, just applying myself in a lot of different ways, coaching martial arts and teaching mathematics, working with children extensively, doing a lot of my own video editing for various video games that I played, a little bit of public speaking, coaching, teaching, even my bachelor's degree in finance, which felt a little bit of a waste at the time. I've all applied myself to becoming what I am today. And that's to say that quitting is a natural part of growing. Now, one of the chapters in the book Range talks about how quitting gets a bad rap because quitting is associated with failure or having the wrong mentality. But in actuality, quitting is a lot of times the evolution stage that says, this is not for me, I'm going to go move on to something that's more interesting or something that I can apply myself better to. You see, when we think of quitting, we think of that lazy kid that doesn't want to do anything, just sit around and play video games, or, oh, as soon as it gets hard, they quit. But while I think that's a fair way of looking at it, sometimes that's not only what quitting is. You see, quitting could be applying yourself to something and realizing that this is not for me. But the key thing is applying yourself to something. You see, a lot of people, when they quit, decide that they don't want to do anything. They don't want to apply themselves to anything. And not to sound like a boomer, which I way too often do nowadays, we live in a society right now where, with the amount of distractions and dopamine-inducing cheats, can allow you to not really apply yourself to anything ever. And see, that's even worse than quitting. You see, what I have done, whether it was quitting Overwatch League, quitting mixed martial arts, even quitting my pursuit of finance, is I've quit a lot of things. I applied myself hard to finishing all of those things and giving myself the full experience and said, you know what, I learned from it, but I don't enjoy this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I moved on. And I think that's a very important part of growth. You see, if you don't find out what it is to apply yourself to something, and at the same time then have the guts to say, you know what, sunk cost fallacy, I've already put time in, I don't need to put more time in if I really don't enjoy this, then you're missing out. See, a lot of people in the world today never really apply themselves hard to anything. And then they also never really have the guts to quit. And so we get in this endless cycle of, well, you know, I guess I just, you know, I don't love my job, or I don't love this hobby, but it's just kind of like, and not just, by the way, it feels like I'm talking about jobs here, but it's not just jobs, it's also hobbies. Have you ever gone rock climbing? Have you ever taken an art class? Ever taken a dance class? What about this new video game? Have you tried that? A lot of people that I coach, I actively encourage them to try something else other than Overwatch, because it seems like every time they play Overwatch, it just makes them miserable. Could be part of the mentality. Could also be just Overwatch isn't for you. And if you're noticing some similarities between this and you're never going to hit GM video, there's a reason behind that, because really both of them go hand in hand. The reason why a lot of people would hit GM is because the game isn't for them. And in that video, when I talked about being diamond, a little bit of everything, the concept is still here. Apply yourself to something. Apply yourself to something. Now, there are a few non-negotiables. We talk about quitting. There's a couple things that I think as human beings we're hardwired to and ought to be pursuing regardless. A relationship with God. You need to get right with God. Now, that's easy to do because he's already reconciled himself to us. That's another story. You need to take care of your health. That's a non-negotiable. You need to make sure that you have a good social environment. I'm very fortunate. I have a phenomenal family, but I don't have a lot of friends. I made a lot of friends in high school, made a lot of friends in college, but none really stuck. I just wasn't particularly interested in friendship, so I only have a very few select friends, and mostly my family. Who are your friends? Who do you know? Go out there, meet somebody. You don't need many friends. You just need a few friends. But spending time in a social environment, I think, is incredibly important for human beings. That's another non-negotiable. I think work, or applying yourself to something, feeling a sense of purpose, is also a non-negotiable. You can't just apply yourself to a video game all day long and expect yourself to feel accomplished. Whether that's school, whether that's a job, but you need to be progressing and growing yourself. And I think a little bit of sweat and grime and a little bit of, I don't actually enjoy this part so much, I think that's okay. Now, when I say applying yourself. I'm not necessarily saying that you're applying yourself to be the best at whatever you do. I don't think that's necessary. What I am saying is really giving it a go to learn, to progress, to see what you enjoy. You see, I remember as a kid thinking, all those stupid lazy kids, they don't want to work, they don't want to study math, they don't want to study science, and they don't want to do all these things. Those idiots. No, this is no commentary in the school system, so try to scrub that from your thoughts. And then I got a little older, and like, what? Wait, why are we making high school kids study things that they really hate? Why are we making them study subjects that they're not going to be very useful in the later? And then I got a little bit older, and I got a little bit more nuanced off of that. And I thought, okay, well, I get why we're making kids apply themselves to a lot of different things, because you never know what you're going to learn. You never know what you're going to enjoy. And whatever you're doing, you should always be applying yourself. But why couldn't we let the kids have a little bit more agency and control over what they would decide to do? And I think, like, now that you are an adult, and even if you're a teenager watching this, you have a decent amount of agency of at very least what you do with your free time. So what are you doing with your free time? Like, what are you doing? Are you applying yourself to anything? Are you stuck in a feedback loop where it's like, it's not great, but it's like it keeps you somewhat interested? Why haven't you tried something else? Why haven't you applied yourself to something more interesting or more rewarding, or something that you're really not sure about? There's so much out there, guys. I think, like, whether it's from a social standpoint, a work standpoint, a recreation standpoint, quitting might be the best thing that you do, as long as that quitting is followed by another word: starting something new, finding a new path that you can apply yourself to. Because I think our entire life is a cacophony of trial and error over and over and over. And if yours is a very simple monotone beep, because you've never really had the guts to try anything new and never really applied yourself to anything, and also never had the guts to quit, then I think you're really missing out. So what am I saying? Apply yourself, but also don't be scared to quit. Applying yourself is having the guts to actually try new things and see if you enjoy it, see if it's worth your time. But quitting is also going, well, it's not for me. I'm going to go and take a risk, find something new. And I think if you're missing out on that, you're missing out on a lot of what life has to offer. So anyway, what this has to do with Overwatch, I don't know. Maybe you guys, all you Junkrat mains, you've just never tried Mercy. I think that's the main takeaway.